You're browsing YouTube at 2 in the morning when a video appears, 80s music that will transport you through time. You click. The first synthesizer chords hit your chest with impossible familiarity. You close your eyes, and suddenly you're in a neon nightclub you never stepped foot in, dancing to songs you never heard when they played on the radio, feeling a nostalgia so deep it hurts. But here's the disturbing detail. You were born in the 90s. That era you miss so much ended before you took your first breath. How can you feel nostalgia for something you never experienced? Why does your soul recognize as home a time you only know through fragments of movies and yellowed photographs? This experience isn't unique to you. Millions of people worldwide feel this strange temporal melancholy. Young people who sigh for the 60s, teenagers obsessed with 70s aesthetics, adults who idealize the 50s as if they had witnessed their lost innocence. It's as if there existed a collective memory recorded in our emotional DNA, a library of experiences that transcends our personal biography. Carl Jung would call this the collective unconscious, that dimension of the psyche where universal archetypes reside, the primordial images that all humanity shares. But nostalgia for unlived eras goes beyond a simple psychological phenomenon. It's an existential wound of our time, a symptom of something much deeper that's fractured in the modern experience. Imagine for a moment that you're a time traveler trapped in the wrong era. Your soul recognizes the music, colors, textures of past decades because at some level deeper than logic, you know you belong to that specific moment in human history. It's no coincidence that you feel that pang in your chest when you see black and white photographs of couples walking through cobblestone streets, or when you hear the crackle of a vinyl record playing jazz on a rainy afternoon in 1953. There's something in those eras that resonates with the natural frequency of your being, something the current era simply cannot offer you. This temporal nostalgia isn't just a romantic whim or an aesthetic trend. It's the manifestation of a profound disconnection from the present, a signal that something fundamental was lost on the path to modernity. When you idealize the 20s, you're not romanticizing the poverty or pandemics of that era. You're longing for the authenticity of human relationships, the simplicity of daily pleasures, the unhurried pace of an existence that wasn't constantly accelerated by technology. When you sigh for the 60s, it's not because you want to live without internet or civil rights. It's because your soul recognizes an era where rebellion had purpose, where ideals could change the world, where there existed a real counterculture that challenged power structures with genuine music, art, and philosophy. This longing for past eras reveals an uncomfortable truth about our present time. We live in an era of material abundance but spiritual poverty, of digital connectivity but human isolation, of infinite entertainment but empty experiences. Your nostalgia for decades you never lived isn't emotional masochism. It's your psyche protesting against the superficiality of contemporary existence. It's your soul searching for an era where life had richer textures, more intense flavors, deeper meanings. The first key to understanding this temporal nostalgia lies in what we could call the death of sacred rituals. In past eras, every moment of life was imbued with ritual meaning. Family Sunday was truly sacred. Dinners extended for hours with conversations that mattered. Love letters were handwritten with the patience of someone who knows words have weight. When you look at photographs of 50s families dining together, without mobile devices, actually conversing, your soul recognizes something you lost before you were born, the sacredness of human presence without distractions. You're not idealizing that era. You're recognizing a model of existence where each moment had contemplative potential, where slowness wasn't seen as unproductivity, but as the natural condition for depth to flourish. That nostalgia intensifies when you recognize that past eras had something ours has almost completely lost: inevitable confrontation with finitude. Without modern medical comforts, without the illusion of total control over destiny, previous generations lived with an acute awareness of mortality that paradoxically made them more alive. Each song, each dance, each conversation had particular intensity because it was framed by consciousness that nothing lasts forever. Your nostalgia for those eras isn't morbid. It's your being recognizing that conscious proximity to death gives flavor and urgency to life. Something our hyper-technological era has managed to postpone, but at the price of making us emotionally anesthetized. The second dimension of this temporal nostalgia relates to what Jung would call the loss of collective soul. In past decades, there existed shared narratives that gave cohesion to communities. Everyone listened to the same 3 radio stations, watched the same television programs, shared common cultural references that created a dense and meaningful social fabric. When you feel nostalgia for the 70s, you're not just longing for disco music or fashion. You're feeling the absence of that collective experience where millions of people could sing the same songs, laugh at the same programs, be outraged by the same injustices. It was an era where individuality flourished within solid community frameworks, not like the fragmented and atomized individuality of our time. This nostalgia becomes more understandable when you understand that past eras offered something our digital age has practically eliminated: mystery. In the 60s, if you wanted to know about your favorite band, you had to search magazines, exchange information with other fans, build your knowledge piece by piece through research that was itself an emotional adventure. Scarce information made each discovery precious, each biographical fact a treasure. Today, you can know everything about any artist in 5 minutes of browsing, but that total accessibility has killed the magic of the search. Your nostalgia for earlier eras isn't Luddite. It's your psyche recognizing that mystery and difficulty in accessing certain experiences made them more valuable, more transformative. When you deepen into this temporal nostalgia, you discover it's also connected to the loss of what we could call natural rhythms of existence. Past eras were synchronized with more organic cycles. Seasons of the year marked real changes in life rhythm. Night meant pause and contemplation. Weekends were true rest, not extensions of work disguised as free time. Your soul longs for those rhythms because it recognizes they were aligned with something deeper than capitalist productivity. They were aligned with natural cycles of expansion and contraction, activity and rest that allow authentic creativity and inner peace to flourish. This nostalgia intensifies when you recognize that past eras had a more honest relationship with pain and joy. There wasn't the contemporary pressure to be constantly optimized, happy, productive. Previous generations understood that melancholy was a natural part of the human emotional landscape, that periods of introspection and sadness weren't problems to solve, but necessary seasons of the soul. When you look at photographs of people from the 40s or 50s, you see in their faces an emotional depth that seems absent in the era of filters and Instagram's performative smiles. Your nostalgia recognizes that emotional authenticity as something lost and enormously valuable. The third key to understanding this temporal melancholy is recognizing that past eras had something our age has sacrificed on the altar of progress. Connection to ancestral traditions that gave meaning and continuity to individual existence. In the 30s, 40s, 50s, people still maintained links with practices, wisdom, and rituals that had been transmitted for generations. There existed a sense of belonging to something greater than individual life, a connection to a historical flow that granted meaning and purpose. Your nostalgia for those eras isn't blind conservatism. It's your soul recognizing that total rupture with the past, characteristic of modernity, has left current generations orphaned of ancestral wisdom. Floating in a present without roots or clear direction, this disconnection from traditions manifests in the loss of what we could call crafts of the soul. In earlier eras, People had more contact with activities that directly nourish the psyche: gardening, home cooking, crafts, live music, deep conversations, letter writing, contemplation without devices. These weren't just pastimes. They were practices that connected people to deeper rhythms of existence, to the satisfaction of creating with hands, of nurturing relationships through time dedicated without haste. When you feel nostalgia for past decades, part of what you long for are those soul crafts that the digital era has replaced with virtual simulacra that satisfy intellectual hunger but leave the soul undernourished. The fourth dimension of this temporal nostalgia relates to the loss of what Jung would call the transcendent function in daily life. Past eras were more connected to dimensions of meaning that transcended the purely material. Music had lyrics that explored deep existential themes. Popular art contained archetypal symbolism. Even mass entertainment was imbued with mythological and spiritual references that elevated consciousness. Your nostalgia for the 60s recognizes an era where popular culture was simultaneously accessible and profound, where you can find Eastern philosophy in Beatles lyrics, existential reflections in blues, social questioning in folk. You're not romanticizing. You're recognizing that there existed a culture that nurtured both entertainment and consciousness. Elevation. This loss becomes more evident when you compare the quality of conversations past generations could maintain versus the superficiality of contemporary exchanges. In eras where information was scarcer, but time to process it more abundant, people developed the capacity to sustain deep dialogues, to explore complex ideas without the rush to move to the next stimulus. Your nostalgia recognizes that those eras cultivated a form of contemplative intelligence that our era of information overload has practically extinguished. It's not that people were more intelligent. It's that they had the time and mental space for that intelligence to flourish. Now comes the crucial moment of revelation. Your nostalgia for eras you never lived isn't a defect or an unhealthy fixation. It's your inner wisdom recognizing that different historical eras embody different aspects of human potential, and your soul is identifying which of those aspects resonate most deeply with your essential nature. You weren't born in the wrong era. You were born in the era where you can be the conscious bridge between past wisdom and present possibilities. Your nostalgia is actually a form of intuitive knowledge, a capacity to recognize and value elements of human experience that your current era has discarded but that remain essential for a full life. This understanding completely transforms the meaning of your temporal melancholy. You're not a maladjusted person sighing for impossible eras. You're someone with sufficient sensitivity to recognize which aspects of human experience are truly nourishing for the soul, regardless of the era where they manifested. Your nostalgia is a form of spiritual discernment, a capacity to distinguish between genuine technological progress and the loss of fundamental human values. It's your internal navigation system indicating which elements of the past remain relevant and necessary for authentic existence. This revelation opens a completely new possibility. You can stop seeing your temporal nostalgia as a limitation and begin seeing it as a guide. Each era that attracts you is pointing towards specific aspects of human experience that your soul recognizes as necessary. If you feel nostalgia for the 50s, perhaps your being is asking for more simplicity, more family rituals, more connection to the cyclical nature of time. If you're attracted to the 60s, maybe your soul seeks more creative rebellion, more questioning of established structures, more connection to the transcendent through art and music. If the 20s fascinate you, you're possibly longing for more spontaneity, more celebration of life despite uncertainty, more elegance in daily gestures. The key is understanding that you don't need to time travel to access those qualities. Each era that attracts you is a map toward aspects of your potential that are waiting to be developed in the present. Your nostalgia for the 70s can transform into the decision to listen to music with more contemplative attention, to dress with the authenticity that era represented, to seek communities where you can have conversations that really matter. Your melancholy for the 40s can become the practice of writing letters by hand, cooking with patience, creating rituals that honor the beauty of simple moments. This transformation requires that you stop seeing the past as an escape from the present and begin seeing it as a repository of applicable wisdom. The eras that attract you aren't unreachable destinations. They're teachers showing you aspects of human experience that remain possible if you have the intention and courage to integrate them into your contemporary life. Your nostalgia then becomes a creative force, inspiration to design an existence that combines the best of the past with the unique possibilities of the present, the path to transcending temporal melancholy and transforming it into applied wisdom begins with an act of radical honesty with yourself. Instead of losing yourself in fantasies about idealized eras, ask yourself what specific aspects of those eras actually attract you. Is it the music, the fashion, the social rituals, the relationship with time, the quality of conversations, the connection to nature, the simplicity of pleasures? Once you identify these elements precisely, you can begin to consciously integrate them into your current life, without needing to completely reject the advantages and possibilities of your era. This integration requires what we could call conscious anachronism, the deliberate practice of incorporating wisdom and beauty from past eras within the present context. It means creating spaces in your life where you can experience those qualities your soul longs for, moments without digital devices where you can experience the contemplation that characterized slower eras. Personal rituals that honor the sacredness of time as previous generations did. Artistic or craft practices that connect you to the satisfaction of creating with hands. Relationships where you can have the type of deep conversations that characterized eras with fewer distractions. The key is understanding that you can be selective about what you take from the past and what you maintain from the present. You don't need to reject technology to experience contemplation. You can use technology consciously and create deliberate spaces of disconnection. You don't need to renounce modern medical advances to experience a more honest relationship with mortality. You can live with greater awareness of finitude without rejecting the benefits of contemporary medicine. You don't need to abandon current social freedoms to experience the depth of traditional rituals. You can create new rituals that honor both your individuality and your need for community connection. This conscious synthesis between past and present requires developing what Jung would call the creative function, the capacity to take elements from different eras and different knowledge systems to create a way of life that is unique but rooted in proven wisdom. Your nostalgia for past eras then becomes fuel for existential creativity, inspiration to design a life that honors both your contemporary needs and your hunger for depth and authenticity. The transformation process also involves developing a more mature relationship with time itself. Instead of seeing time as a line where some eras are better than others, you can begin to experience it as a spiral where different qualities from different eras are always available if you know how to access them. Nostalgia stops being a fixation with the past and becomes a capacity to consciously navigate between different types of temporal experience, choosing in each moment the quality of time that most nourishes your soul. This new relationship with time allows you to understand that there is no perfect era, but perfect moments that can be created in any era if you have the adequate consciousness and intention. Your nostalgia for the 50s can manifest in an afternoon where you cook with patience, share an unhurried dinner with people you love, and converse about topics that really matter. Your longing for the 60s can materialize in moments where you allow yourself to be creatively rebellious, where you question structures that limit your authenticity, where you seek experiences that expand your consciousness. The final transformation occurs when you understand that your temporal Nostalgia wasn't really about the past, but about unexplored possibilities in the present. Each era that attracted you was pointing toward aspects of your potential that were waiting to be developed. Your melancholy becomes a map toward more authentic and full versions of yourself, versions that integrate past wisdom with the unique opportunities of your historical moment. At this point, nostalgia transforms into gratitude. Gratitude for having access to the wisdom of all eras through music, art, literature, and history. Gratitude for living in a moment where you can consciously choose which aspects of the past to integrate into your life. Gratitude for having the necessary sensitivity to recognize beauty and depth wherever they manifest, regardless of era. Your capacity to feel nostalgia for eras you never lived reveals itself as a gift. Your soul's ability to recognize and value human beauty beyond the limitations of chronological time. This understanding completely frees you from unproductive temporal melancholy. You no longer need to escape toward fantasies about past eras because you've learned to create moments of that quality in your present. You no longer feel you were born in the wrong era because you understand your era offers you something unique. The possibility of being conscious of all eras simultaneously, of integrating ancestral wisdom with contemporary opportunities, of being a conscious bridge between past and future. Your nostalgia for eras you never lived was actually your soul reminding you that beauty, depth, authenticity, and meaning aren't properties of specific eras, but qualities of consciousness that can be cultivated at any historical moment by those who have the sensitivity to recognize them and the will to manifest them. The era doesn't make the moment sacred. Consciousness makes the moment sacred. And you, with your capacity to recognize beauty across time, have everything you need to create sacred moments in your present. Moments that honor past wisdom while embracing the unique possibilities of your era. If this message has resonated with something deep in you, if you've recognized in these words that temporal melancholy you believed only you experienced, share this reflection with someone you know also carries that nostalgia for unlived eras in their heart. And in the comments, tell us, which is that era that most attracts you, and what do you think your soul is trying to tell you through that nostalgia? Because when we share these apparently so personal experiences, we discover we're not alone in this journey of recognizing beauty across time, and that our temporal nostalgia can be the beginning of a more conscious, more authentic life, more deeply connected to what really matters.